you're listening to Big Blend Radio's Lost Angel Travel Adventures show with Linda Ballou, travel writer and author, and your host, Lisa Smith. So, everybody, welcome. Today, we're going to go to the Grand Canyon. We're very excited to talk about the story Rafting in the Wake of Georgie White, excuse me, Georgie. Linda Ballou finds these women to write about all over the place, all across the country, around the world. And of course, you can go to her website, lostangeladventures.com, and also lindaballauthor.com. She did write about rafting in the wake of Georgie White in her book, Lost Angel Unleashed. So you can check that out. And the story won a Solas Award at Travel Tales Publications. But welcome back. How are you, Linda?
Oh, I'm fabulous. And I'm excited to talk about this story. It's one of my favorites. I think rafting the Grand Canyon was big on my bucket list. And
Yeah.
I courted the owner of the Grand Canyons Expedition, which is the oldest company running the river, for 3 years before I got that trip. But I got it. And I tell you, it's the most fabulous, um, really mind bending kind of an experience, transformational. I know that word is overused, but really, you raft the Grand Canyon, you stay on the canyon for, about 11 days with just, totally unplugged,
Mm.
completely unplugged. And, going through these formations that, some of them look like you're in ancient Egypt up the top, pharaohs and Nefertiti, and your imagination goes wild with all of these fabulous formations that are carved by the Colorado River.
Mm.
So yeah, I would say of all the journeys that I've had and been lucky enough to do, the Grand Canyon, rafting the Grand Canyon, is right up on top.
Well, I love about in your story, and again, everyone, Lost Angel Unleashed, which is Linda's latest book out. You know, it's a personal. These are a lot of personal stories, but what I really got from it too is, the Southwest is dramatic. It's beautiful. There's serenity now, but it also, if you're not aware, can kick your butt. For example, flash floods through the desert. You could sit and see a beautiful day. And I learned how to, navigate flash flood country and have been through flash floods. I remember picking up a friend and driving him to Vegas, and we lived out in Joshua Tree. And I said, "There's going to be a flash flood." And he looked at me. It's a blue sky. There's absolutely no clouds. I said, "There's going to be a flash flood. We're going to have a monsoon. It's coming. I can feel it." No, 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 no. He keeps talking. I'm like, "We need to get in the car and go." Well, we get in the car, go finally. And the monsoon came, and you could see the flood go across the Mojave Desert like the ocean tide come in. And we had to go. And we actually even bottomed out. We had a little car issue there because everyone was like, "Let's get out." We're in the backwoods of nowhere in this desert. And he's like, "I will never," it was the quietest he's ever been. "I will never second guess you again." I said, "The desert is weird, my friend, because it's so
Well,
scenic. But the river rafting experience you had was that same thing, all serenity. And then all of a sudden you got to wake up because you can't just be in that zone, that
well,
Zen
it's
moment, right?"
the weather's mercurial
Yeah.
and the canyon is magical. And you put those two things together, and in a little better than a week's time, you experience, a myriad of emotions. And well, I have a piece that I'd really love to read because it kind of
Awesome.
sets the stage here. So this is on the at the end of the river, but still. "Wake up, people. Find your behind and sit on it," Captain Adam yelled over the roar of the monster wave spilling into a 20-foot hole dead ahead. "It's the biggest water I've seen here," he said as we motored closer to Lava Falls. The flips at this very place, the most fearsome rapid in the 227-mile Grand Canyon run, were notorious. I bolted from my daydreaming position on the warm pontoon of our raft. While drifting between walls of black porous rock, once inside the cone of a volcano, I'd sunk into river time. Ominous walls, scoured by bubbling lava from the molten core of the earth, held me spellbound. But when we floated past the enormous basalt plug in the middle of the river, I'd forgotten that it meant we were approaching lava falls and that I was holding a one-way ticket home. The enormous wave cascading over the lip of the rock was begging to catch a boatman in a mistake. We planned to stay to the right of the hole to avoid being swallowed by the river. I could see water spitting from the churning brew as we headed for the maelstrom. I held on to the straps for all I was worth and prayed I wouldn't get washed off the raft. My mantra on this trip was stay in the boat. A thrashing bull ride later, it was over, leaving us clapping and laughing as we rocked and rolled through the rest of the wave train. And when Georgie White ran Lava Falls before the installation of Glen Canyon Dam in 1964, the volume of water was often 5 times what we experienced. What a woman. So
Right.
Georgie was the first one to raft the canyon. She not only rafted the canyon, she swam the canyon.
Oh,
She
wow.
had on a life vest, but the whole 227 miles, she rafted it by herself and swam it by herself. And and what got this started was, and the reason I identified so much with Georgie White was because she was selling real estate in Los Angeles. And guess what? I
Oh,
have
hello.
I sell real estate in Los
Yeah.
Angeles all my adult life. So uh, she was bicycling on the Pacific Coast Highway with her daughter, who was 15. And her daughter was hit and run by a
Oh,
driver and killed instantly. And this just tore Georgie apart. She couldn't, function. So she went to the Grand Canyon and she hiked on the trails there in the canyon for about 2 years
wow.
with a and she would eat a tin of tomatoes, and she was had all this energy on this ridiculously low protein diet. I mean, but she was just phenomenal. And after 2 years of hiking around the canyon, she decided to swim the canyon. And
Mm,
then she loved it so much. She was so enamored with the canyon that she created what they call a G rig, and she laced together 3 rafts, Army surplus rafts, which would be strong enough
mhm.
and buoyant enough to go through the rapids. So she then went to Hollywood and went to Hollywood companies and tried to get PR for the canyon, to bring people, because she loved the experience so much she wanted to share it. So
Mm,
she was like the first one to raft and brought all kinds of people to the canyon. And I don't know whether she'd be happy today about what she did because
right. I was gonna,
now the
yeah.
canyon is rushed by, and the park prevents, you can't go in more than 20,000 people a year. But now there's motorized crafts, there's dories, but it's still,
Helicopters.
but I have to say, it is still, well, I wasn't bothered too much by helicopters, fortunately. Um,
Mm,
and so even with that amount of people on the river, the beach camps, our guides knew which beach camps we would stop at. If there were other people there, we wouldn't stop there. We would go
mm.
to
Oh,
an
that's nice.
isolated beach camp, and you would sleep out under the stars, and that was just so
Oh,
magnificent because you could really see the sky, the desert sky.
mm,
And it was warm. It's like 70, and there weren't any mosquitoes, which is
wow.
lovely and unusual.
That's-
There were
Yeah.
lots of bats floating around. You could see them, against the full moon. And it was just a mystical experience for me. And one of the funnest things we did is the Little Colorado River, which comes down from
Mhm.
Havasu, and it's turquoise. And you
It's
think,
beautiful.
what is this turquoise water doing
Hmm.
here? Because the Grand Canyon is kind of a rusty color, like those canyon walls
Hmm.
behind me and in that and on my book. That book, although those rusty things are in Australia, but anyhow, they look quite a bit the same, don't they? Uh, we went swimming there, and it was warm water coming. It wasn't
Wow.
from the dam. The water from the dam is cold. You can't swim in it anymore. When Georgie was swimming in the river, it was like 70 degrees, but now
Mm,
it's like 55 degrees because it's
wow.
released from the dam, but also it's controlled, so it's not nearly
Yeah.
as dangerous. But there was like a water slide there, and there were like three groups of us playing around on this water slide for the longest time. It was so fun.
Well,
And
it's quite a hike, if you're not doing it the way you are doing it. I know people hike up
right, I
to those
haven't been the
waterfalls.
other way down. I know, I look at it, and it's a beautiful pool, and there's a waterfall, and there are
Mhm,
campsites, and people go there, and I wouldn't mind going there, but I saw it from the other side, which is really kind of special
mhm,
because Supapu or Supubai or something like that, the navel of the earth for the Indian people, is in between the Colorado, where the main Colorado, and the
mhm,
Havasu Fall area. And so we were not allowed to go any further up the river because
mhm.
that would have been disrespectful.
Yeah, it's sacred.
So yeah, we were in. It's really special to do to raft the river. For another reason is because there's slot canyons that you hike up, and one of them was the jumping off place for the spirits. And so the Indian people believe they wear an earring in their a round earring in their
Mm.
ear, so that when they jump off at this place, the spirits on the other side will catch them with their earring.
Oh, I love that. But I love those stories too. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
yeah.
and just
Well, the Indians, they one of the really neat experiences there is hiking up Nankoweap, where the Indian granaries were like 10,000 years old.
mm,
And it's not only a marvelous hike and a significant Indian treasure, the view from it is phenomenal,
mm,
just phenomenal. It's a
mm.
bit,
So you were like up for like Marble Canyon area, right? Because that's gorgeous and that's near the Vermilion Cliffs area.
right. We went
We
through
got
all of
lost
that.
there. We got lost in the Vermilion Cliffs, like totally lost and didn't
Uh,
know where we were.
easy
Like,
to do.
and it's like, do you turn left or right? I have no idea. This is before all the GPS tools and everything that, we all
Right.
have now, but it's beautiful. It is just amazing.
Right. And one of the things that's really phenomenal about this experience is that you keep going down lower and lower and lower, like a mile down, it's
Hmm.
carved down, 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 down. And at one point at the lowest part of the river, we went for a walk into one of these slot canyons. And the walls of the canyon were like bubbles, like the rocks had been molded into bubbles like plastic. So
Mm.
it was a very bizarre formation, and from the weight, the crush of the earth and the heat and so on had transformed these
Wow.
rocks into a bubble wall. It was like, I don't know
That's
how else
wild.
to describe it. Yeah. And so, and the other thing I want to say about the river is that anybody can do it. Literally, anyone can take this trip. Um, One lady who was on the trip with us
Mhm.
when she was a little girl, she heard the Grand Canyon Suite. And it's just stuck with
It's
her so
beautiful.
much. And if you want to add music to this, please make it the Grand Canyon Suite. And so since she was a little girl, she always dreamed of coming to the canyon.
Mm.
Okay. And now she was like about 50, maybe 55, and she was in a fourth stage of cancer.
Wow. So that's an epic. I mean, there's bucket list travel, but when you still push yourself at that level of cancer,
And it
that's
was it was really
special.
tender. It was really tender because her husband was like a really he was a very quiet, very
Hmm.
soft-spoken man, but he was like a burly, you know, very masculine guy. Like he was like a miner or something. I don't know exactly what he did for a living, but you could tell that he was a hard worker. Let's put it that way, from somewhere. And he just carried her from the raft to the shore and put up their tent and
Oh,
took,
wow.
took such great care of her, honestly. But if you could just get in and out of the raft, that's all you had to do, because if he hadn't been along, the guides would have popped up her tent. So my point is,
Mm.
don't let a mobility issue stop you from one of life's finest experiences.
That's a really good point because you can go through some rapids, right, as you talk about in your story, but um don't put it off and don't wait either.
Right.
Don't I mean, look at what Nancy and I do traveling the country together. I mean, it's kind of people look at us, we're nuts, and we're like, she doesn't want to stop, and until she wants to stop, I'm not stopping. Why would I do that? Um, you got to do that, and what you're talking about when you have these experiences and these kinds of adventures, because no matter what, fear lurks, right? There's no way there isn't some part of, oh, like an oh hell moment, right? When you like you see the rapids, you hear the water, so there's
Right.
those moments, but you've got that connectivity on these kind of small, it's a very intimate and immersive experience with these people that suddenly like you're all together.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit. The community that forms in the group on an
Hmm.
8-day trip, right? Or
Yeah.
I think it was 10 days. But anyway, um, one of the people on the trip was a young man named Matt, and he was just kind of we thought he was kind of he was I would say he was about 27 or 8 or something.
Hmm.
He was from London, and he was a chatty Cathy, and he would just go on and on about the record shop that he worked in London. He knew the name of every
Oh,
record
cool.
that was ever made, right? And at some points I had to say, Matt, please give it a rest. We're on the river. I want to hear the river, So, but he was a character. But we went through what was called the deep freeze, which was a narrow corridor, and it's cold because there's no sun coming. It's
Hmm.
narrow and then no sun, and then of course it started to rain. Really, a
Oh
freezing
boy.
rain. You do have to have your rain clothes. You do have to be prepared for the elements because, like we said,
Hmm.
mercurial weather. So Matt was up on the bow of the boat without a jacket, yelling, being splashed by these big waves in this really cold deep freeze place, yelling, "Bring it on!
Oh no.
Bring it on! Bring it on!" And our guide Adam, he said, "Get him back in the boat,
Yeah.
people." So we went around, a couple of us, this other man and myself, and we pulled Matt back in to the what they called the chicken coop, was where you could be dry even in the worst cases, right? So he was shaking and trembling. And so the two of the women, and we were worried for him. And so two of the women were nurses, and
Oh,
they took a
good.
garbage bag and they cut holes on for arms and for his head and put it on him, wrapped him up, and we both all of us got around him, the two women
Yeah.
on each side to warm him up because he was getting hypothermia, because once again that water isn't 70 degrees now, and it was cold and raining and blah blah blah. So through this experience, the nurses informed us that he was autistic. They
Oh,
diagnosed him as being autistic. And from that point forward, he was like our charge. Everybody
yeah.
was looking out for Matt because he didn't realize how dangerous he was to himself.
Mm.
And so, he, off time, like one time he wanted to go for a hike. We said, "I'm sorry, Matt. We were afraid you might hurt yourself there. So please don't do that." You know, but he
Yeah.
was very intelligent. And I remember we were sitting at the campfire at the end of the trip, and I can't exactly remember what he said about the trip, but it was so poetic. I was just blown away.
But but that's the thing, it's a special need, when someone's got
Right,
autism, and now they actually have communities that are becoming in hospitality,
right.
becoming autistic centers. So like Visalia, California, which is a gateway to Sequoia National Park, became the very first one. We've done shows on it where they wear a yellow bracelet kind of thing,
So
those
that
little plastic kind of things. And people just go, they don't say, oh, do you have autism or anything like that. They just go, oh,
Right.
I see you wearing the bracelet thing. How can I help you? Oh,
Right.
let's maybe take you away from a place that's high energy because that
Right. That might
stimulates,
upset you or make you nervous. I mean, I know
Yeah.
autistic people who hold down jobs and,
Yeah.
lead independent lives, and they can. But in this instance, he had to be pulled back because
But yeah.
he was going to hurt himself,
Well, there's a
So,
buddy system that goes with these kinds of things. It's a
right.
buddy system,
Right.
and it's important because I think you can't go traveling thinking that you're just going to sit back and everything's going to be done for you. You can't. I
No.
think you have to be part of that community, and
What?
it obviously was memorable for you
Oh,
because of
well, it
these
was very
people.
important. It was very important when now we all had a very deep connection with Matt. And like I said, he
Mhm.
became our charge. He was like I won't say mascot, but our charge. We
Yeah.
felt responsible for taking care of him. And anyone could go, like I say, a lot of things can happen on a trip. We didn't have any injuries, but things can happen. And I think when you're in a situation like that, like you can help out at camp. Yeah, you have guides, but you can set up the chairs. You can participate. You can be part of taking care of one another on an outdoor trip. When I rafted the Tachincini River, which was a
Mhm.
very dangerous trip, much more dangerous than the Grand Canyon. There were no helicopters. If you went into the boat, out of the boat, you were going to get hypothermia in 3 minutes, and there were no helicopters.
Are
And it
we
was,
back to helicopters like last last month's
yeah, really,
podcast?
no more helicopters.
Get
So,
insurance, by the way.
oh yeah,
Evacuation insurance, right?
yeah. So yeah, my next article for my boomer column, I have a column, by the way, on the National Association of Baby Boomer Women.
Hmm.
And my next one is all about travel insurance. I think travel insurance is not well understood and should be clarified for people. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, participate. Be part of the community because if it's just like, oh, sit back, then you don't get to know people as well.
Well,
And
you're not part of the experience. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You set yourself apart. If sometimes the guides will say, "No, please get out of my way." You're not helping me. You're in my way. But
yeah.
I think it's and to help your other guests. Like I needed help putting up my tent. I admit it. Those sticks are like pickup
Dude, I
sticks
don't
for
I
me.
don't care what
You
kind of
know.
tent it is. We all need help with tents.
So I needed help from anyone who would volunteer to help me put up my tent. But once I had my tent up, I was fine. And some
Mm.
nights I didn't even have a tent because it was so pleasant. I mean, I was lucky, very fortunate that way in terms of the weather. We only
Mm.
had that one icebox experience, and it was just for an hour or so that we were in this
Okay.
stretch because you go through different microclimates as you go through the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
So
But it's so neat to be on the water side. Like, even I love kayaking. I absolutely adore it because you're almost more connected with nature in a way. Like definitely
absolutely.
you don't want to do, I mean, there's scenic drives and everything, which are great, but unless you're hiking or actually when you're in the water, you just become part of the ecosystem to me
Right.
for
Well,
some
I
reason.
love to
It's
be immersed in nature.
mm,
That's me. I'm a nature nut. My
mm-hmm.
theme song is "We Can Find Salvation in Nature."
Yep.
And I do. And I have to get out of the car. I can't stay in the car. I have to,
God, I know.
be on the river. I've taken many horse treks, and
Mm.
that's my favorite mode of transport, I think. But I love rivers, and I rafted the Salmon River, which was a really fine river, and maybe we'll talk about that one day. That
Yeah.
was, so.
I
But
love that you talk about
I
the
have to say, the Tachincini River is
that's scary.
well, but it's so incredible. It's so
I
fantastic.
think I think what's so great about talk about these places and these experiences is to do something other than the typical and to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And doing something like the Grand Canyon can lead you to going, okay, now I'll do a little bit of a stronger river kind of thing. And you
Right,
can grow from there, right?
right,
Because it's so to grow as a human being is to be, the more you can connect with nature. I mean, It's like why surfers surf. It's like,
Right.
you can get hurt out there, but man, do we want to catch
Yeah,
that
but they
wave?
have to be there. You saw all those big waves that were on the news, right? Oh,
Yeah,
the surfers were out there loving it.
I
Bring it
know.
on,
And
bring it on, they say.
yeah, I know. And I'm like that too. And it's like, what? I don't know. There's that little spark of like, I don't know. And you also realize pretty quickly how big nature is, and nature's big. You
Yeah,
can't mess with her.
yeah. If you're gonna get in a fight with Mother Nature, you're gonna lose. you
Yep.
gotta learn.
She's
You gotta learn
humbling.
how to
But
go with Mother Nature's
hmm
movements. I think if
hmm
people want to get into river rafting, the American River in California is a great place to begin. I think that was my first river. And I did the Rogue River a couple of years back, and that's a
hmm
real easy, fun river. And there's lots of ways to do the Rogue. They have a raft situation where they have you raft to lodge, and then that way you're not
mm,
camping out and you're sleeping, and it's very civilized and comfortable. There's that.
that's
Um,
nice though.
and the Salmon River is in Idaho is quite a big river and a very exciting trip. But when I was on it, once again, anybody can do it. There was an 85-year-old woman who was a senator at one point in her life, and she had a following of women, like a half a dozen of them.
Mm,
And they do a different river every year, and
that's amazing.
she's the big leader, and they call themselves the River Spirits. And I was very impressed with that. And she was
Mm.
85, and all she had to do was get in and out of the raft. And
I hate to say it, but she sounds more awake than most politicians.
yeah, really.
I didn't say that. I didn't
Yeah.
say
Well,
it.
no, but I mean, well, people are
Yeah.
living longer, and there's no reason for you not to live until you die.
Do what you can. Yeah.
Live until you die is my
hmm Yeah.
plan.
I want to burn out, not, I don't want to rest out. It's like, I don't want to, I want to go. Like, I always say, I think it was Churchill said he wanted to go down like with dirty shirt. It was Churchill or Franklin, Ben Franklin, that talked about like, I'm going to skid into my grave. I'm not going to be all cleany weeny. I'm going in. It's like I'm so busy, and that's kind of how I feel about life too. But it is, you're bringing up something about when you go on these experiences that test you. You start to know yourself pretty well, and you take on bigger challenges in life. There's a
Hmm.
direct relation. I know you're, the real estate professional side too, but when you challenge yourself with these kinds of things where they're, yes, very doable, but like I said, there's always that little element of Mother Nature.
Oh,
Does it
absolutely. You can get hurt.
impact your life? Does it impact your life professionally and just as a human being because you've expanded some your experiences and you start to trust yourself better? I think people that may lack self-confidence, obviously you don't, doing these things will
Well,
help you.
I think, Lisa, that I feel sorry for young people today in the sense that they're so connected to their phones, they can't let go. Like I live in the mountains, and the kids come out here to hike, and they've got their bloody phones with them. And they've got they're not experiencing the place at all.
Mm-hmm.
But far be it from me to, maybe it's more fun for them than what I have. But I want to hear the birds.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel the breeze. I want
I'm
to
with
be
you.
in nature, and
And Nancy, I
also
always see
and
people
also
go
a
with,
lot of them, I hear them, they're afraid.
they're
They're
not,
afraid to let go of that connection, which I think is unfortunate. But
I
then
love that way
they'll
of
grow
put,
up and get over it. And the book The Trail is really good about that. It's a really good one.
mm-hmm,
Uh, for I recommend that one. He does the Pacific Crest Trail
mm-hmm.
from Tuolumne Meadow up to Whitney. And
Oh,
I
that.
think it's one of the best books I've read about that experience. It's really good about it being
Well, I
out there
think
and how it affects him to be out there.
to be out in nature and disconnected from the phone is important. I think, we're getting, you know, connectivity in places that sometimes I don't think is good for the environment. But I think, Nancy and I have seen in all the park travels we do, it blows our mind of how people are not aware of their surroundings because of
Right.
their phone, which is dangerous in itself.
Yes,
They're
it
so
is.
worried about stuff, and I'm like, you're doing the most dangerous thing. You're not being aware. So yeah, you could step on a rattlesnake, which I've almost done, being on my phone stupidly. Um, but also I mean, we were in Mount Rainier. It was the beginning of our tour, and we were in Nisqually, which is just wildflowers. I mean, they have also have Paradise Meadow. I mean, because it's paradise, man. It is just thick with wildflowers. I've never seen anything like it in an alpine setting. I'm from the
Mhm.
bush in Africa. You didn't get it in alpine, yeah, you know. And Nancy and I were just blown away. Like you literally wanted to pinch yourself that this was real. And there was a mommy deer with their little babies. Oh my gosh. And Nancy and I were sitting there, I'm filming this deer and the deer just looked at us and they're enjoying the flower. They were chowing down. And it's like people walked right by them, like right by them. And I filmed people walk right by them. I'm going, this is literally the closest Bambi experience you can have.
Yeah,
And we happen in sequoias, but they're on their phone or they're running, which I understand everybody enjoys the parks the way
right.
they want to. So I'm not knocking it, but there was this lack of actually connecting with nature.
Yeah, being aware of where they were. Well, I
Hmm.
hope that people reading my stories will
Take
have
that step.
have a sense of being there,
Hmm.
and that it will inspire people to go there and
Awesome.
and be, and enjoy the outdoors, and let it wash through you, and let it cleanse you, and let it
Hmm.
inspire you, and let it, generate creativity. It does all those things for me, and I know if it
It
does that
does.
for others as well, you
Hmm.
know.
I love it. I love it. I think also you're taking people to places that they may not get to in life. It could be, maybe you are, hospital bound or something like that, that they're able to still go on an adventure, even if they may not be able to get there. So I think that's really also a important role of people
Arm,
writing books, you
armchair
know?
travel, armchair
Yeah.
travel.
Sometimes
Let,
people have to
let,
have
let
that
me get the bumps and bruises, and you can just sit there and enjoy.
and then have another cup of tea. I like
Yeah,
it. I
really.
like it. Linda, always a pleasure. We can't wait for next month. Hey, we're on a roll with all of these, you know, evacuation needs. I'm just kidding, but you didn't need to get evacuated out of this one.
No,
So
no, but
yeah,
it's
do you
great fun for me to relive these experiences and to share my work, Lisa. So thank you very much.
absolutely. And listen, happy 2024. We've got a lot of podcasts to
Yeah,
do.
yep, yep. It's good so far. I'm really enjoying it. Of course, I'm here in Southern California where the weather's gorgeous.
Well,
I
next
mean, I
time I
look at
talk
the
to you, it
news
might
and
be
I
snowing.
go, oh boy, am I glad I live here.
Well, I think the next time we talk to you, we're going to be doing a special broadcast with you and Christy Wood on equestrian, because
Oh,
you've both
fun,
written about horses. And
fun.
I think we'll
Yeah.
be in the snow when we talk to you next. And I might be saying,
Okay.
I need to come to
All right. Well,
come
good
to
good luck
LA.
with that drive, Lisa.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Everyone, LindaBallou, also lostangeladventures.com, especially for her book, Lost Angel Unleashed. That's the one where she wrote about rafting in the wake of Georgie White. I love all these women that you are finding for us to learn about. It's like Grandma Gatewood. People like that are just they're inspiring. So thank you all so much and happy travels.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Lost Angel Travel Adventure Show with Linda Ballou, travel writer and author. Keep up with her at lindaballauthor.com and lostangeladventures.com. You can also keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com. Now, happy traveling.